Just checking who we have here.
All right, I kicked off the recording, and I'll preface with the kind of the overall introduction of why this call is happening and why we've decided to get people together on these calls and kind of like bring, I would say, the the innovation that is happening here in Silicon Valley into Ukraine. Because as far as the innovation, obviously Ukraine is innovating in so many areas right now because we have to survive, right? But there are certain areas that get neglected, including AI in general, because it's just not a priority in terms of those use cases that are outside of the, let's say, military and defense. So we started spotting the trends of other countries in Europe kind of like trying to catch up with the wave of innovation in US. We see a bunch of AI companies being started in France, in Spain, and even in Baltic states. And a lot of companies that start AI things there, they actually go here to US. And I'm here in Silicon Valley in San Francisco. And the challenge that I observed was the fact that most of the companies that get started in European markets or Asian or anywhere else, they're actually playing catch up in terms of not being able to build those solutions inside the local markets. They all try to come to here to America and sell solutions here because here's the market, and most importantly, the AI is very English centric. So we thought about how about we actually take the opportunity, the crisis, the war, the downsides that are happening, and try to give people tools and also ideas in a way how to utilize AI to bring up the Ukrainian economy, to bring up the creativity, the creative businesses, and empower people with all of these amazing things that are happening here in the bubble of AI, so to say. So that's the overall agenda of the call. Um, Alina, do you have anything to add?
Maybe I would add that it would be really great to create a project that will be a sustainable one, since Artur made a great point, I think, on one of our earlier meetings, that we are currently like going through the point where Ukraine is already like it's been 2.5 years. So we have to think about projects that will be self-sustainable in the future, and that could be maybe some kind of a model that could be later copied to other countries as they face, I hope they'll never face similar situations as Ukraine did, but still there are many things where like Ukraine could be a great boot camp for that model where we could test it out, see how it works. So yeah, maybe I would add this point that it would be really great to have this idea of a self-sustainable thing that could be like developed on its own later.
Awesome, awesome. So I'll be done with our welcome word, and I would love to hear from you guys. I've obviously familiar with some of the faces. I remember you joining UkraineNow, but why are you here, and what do you think resonated with you for this particular, agenda of the call? No pressure. If you have some ideas, share them. If not, just share your story and how you're connected to Ukraine or how you want to help, and let's do the round of introductions. And since we have Brenda here, you're the amazing scene setter, I guess. I'll start with you. You're on mute. You're still on mute.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Artur. That's good facilitating, right?
We can hear you, but very, very quiet.
I don't know why I felt that way about Alina as well. I was just on a call and my volume was fine. I don't know if you're having a problem on your end. I hear you well.
Okay. Can you guys hear Brenda well?
No. Okay. I can just have a quick look at my settings, but
I can hear you. I just have to turn it all the way up. And then Artur, you're like blasted, but it's fine.
All right. Well, while Brenda checking the settings, I have Lisa next to me. So I'll give the mic to you.
Hey, thanks very much, Artur. Nice to see those of you who I already know again. It's been a while. My name is Liza Levchuk. I'm a third generation Ukrainian Canadian. I live in Montreal. I work in tech, but I'm a technical writer. When this full-scale war started, I felt it very personally, wanted to volunteer however I could, got involved a bit with UkraineNow, then started doing some volunteer stuff for the Center for Civil Liberties in Kyiv. I'm a NAFO fella and just want to help in any way that I might be able to.
Awesome, awesome. Coming in from tech. I like this. All right. Brenda, you want to try?
Also in Montreal, is my volume any better? I raised the internal, yeah, I don't
But let's
know.
go ahead.
Okay.
We'll fix it in the recording.
Okay, thank you. So really great to be here. I've missed you guys. I worked with UkraineNow, helping to host many of the community calls. And the reason I am here now is because of all the people that I met. And, you know, I had many friends who would say to me, how is it that you're working, you know, that you're doing this so much? It must be very, very heavy. And I said, actually, it's strangely, it's really uplifting. And the reason why it was uplifting is because it is people helping people, people all over the world coming together, everybody having their own reasons, their own drive, their own passion to help Ukrainians through this nightmare that has lasted seemingly infinitely. But there was something remarkable to me about it. I would say transformative for me. And so when I got up to when you sent your email, I thought, yeah, like, let's talk about this. And Alina, I love what you said about making this a model, because for me, UkraineNow is a model for a map forward for a better world. And I'm in Montreal also, Lisa, and nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Awesome. Brock, do you want to go next?
Hi, everybody. I met Artur. He was on Clubhouse a long time ago and needed volunteers for UkraineNow. So I volunteer with UkraineNow for a while, and I see a couple familiar faces. And my background's in tech as a business systems analyst, and I just wanted to be able to help out any way I could. And this is a really interesting conversation, so I'm just happy to be here.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. Chris?
Hey y'all, yeah, first time here. I served a LDS mission to Ukraine almost 20 years ago. So yeah, I don't participate in the church any longer, but those were some of the most impactful years of my life living in Ukraine. So learned Ukrainian and Russian by living there, and obviously connected deeply to the people. So, and then my background is in technology. That's how I came across you, Artur, somehow. Yeah, I've started, co-founded, built, scaled, and sold a couple different agencies, like boutique software agencies, as well as a SaaS business. So, and built within AI tooling for a little while. I'm also an artist, and I've used AI for some of the art projects that we've done. I could drop a link here because it might be relevant, but so I touch both the creative and the tech side and have a connection to Ukraine. That's, yeah, been there for a while. So anyway, that's why I'm here.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. David?
Hi, I'm David Fraden. My grandfather and grandmother grew up in Ukraine in the late 1800s, and he rose as a blacksmith to the governor of Kyiv. And in 1914, the governor handed him several $100s and said, "Get out of the country before they kill you." He was Jewish. So I have a kinship with the country, and I still have some relatives there. Back in 1973, I was organizing a Soviet American youth exchange, and the leaders of the science fair from Moscow came to Washington, D.C., where I was living and working at the time. And the guy asked me, "What's your name?" I told him. He says, "Jewish." Apparently, the Russian KGB knows the names of Jewish people. So one of my cousins is a game programmer. He moved from the Donbass area to leave just after the war started. And he's got a couple of 3D printers, and he's making fins for hand grenades to be dropped from drones. So my background is a former business unit manager at Apple, product management at HP. I teach product management worldwide. Cisco is my number one client. So anything I can do to help understand what it is that people in Ukraine need, what do they need to do, why they need to do it, how they are currently doing it. Those are the places where we can bring innovation to bear at the best to help them do the things that they need to get done faster and better.
Oh man, product person was such a track record. I love it. Thank you for joining today. Rose?
Hi, this is Farrell Rose. I'm actually in Dallas, Texas. So I actually work in emergency management and also in fatalities management in large scale situations, incidents, events, depending on how it all gets played out. So we use AI in the contract work that I do in planning, emergency planning. One of the things that we are really kind of working towards getting it more secure is running through the plans so that I'm gonna use the word secret, kind of the proprietary information for your area, for your business, for your product, for your building, things like that, is not shared out to where it's used for that. But you can use the templates, you can use the wording, you can get the information in. It also helps with continuity of operations plans for COOP plans. But AI is it's still kind of held at arm's length with an eyebrow raise, but really that's kind of the focus for what I think is great about this conversation, is all listening to everybody else's use of it as well. So thank you for having us. I appreciate you guys doing this.
Awesome. Great context and great experience that you can bring in and share with us. Axel? Axel, you're on mute.
Yep, hold on one second. I'm gonna turn on the video as well. And it's not Axel. My name is Lily. I'm sorry for it's just
Oh, I know you.
yes. Yes. We have met before. I actually lead the nonprofit organization that is called Navigator UA. And it's really nice to see you all, and thank you so much, Arthur, for for organizing such an online event. Should be pretty informative and potentially helpful for Ukraine. But so talking a little bit about my background, it's pretty much the Navigator UA, which is a nonprofit organization. We organized everything in the beginning of 2022. First started with the humanitarian aid, sending directly to Ukraine to the ground, and then in 2023 everything has changed dramatically because we made some amendments and started to go for the human rights direction to help on a broader scale. So right now the company is undergoing like a huge change, and we have a couple of projects that do not necessarily focus on AI solutions, but AI is definitely the the essential component, because I believe artificial intelligence is the future, and it definitely brings the sustainability that that will be needed. So in this case, the projects that we currently have, one is in collaboration with my partners, both my American partners and partners in Ukraine, that anticipate the neurorehabilitation for Ukrainian veterans. And so that one essentially that brings up the neural stimulation technology, particularly transcranial magnetic stimulation, that's been approved with American FDA for treating for treating PTSD, if I'm not mistaken, but we will try to also utilize it for treating TBI, traumatic brain injuries, which it already showed pretty good results here in United States. And I personally have really similar project here in States. So in terms of artificial intelligence, when I say the essential component, I would probably specify the need of the data science. So basically, the thing that we need to have this general database of the patient's information, and to to use the machine learning in order to just to recognize the general patterns of the treatments, to further navigate the the course of the treatment for the patients and everything, which is not very useful to look through just using the regular tools. Like it's usually massive volumes of information, so it would be pretty hard to investigate all of that just just for the person, even though like the competent professional. So AI is really useful here. That's why I am really interested in what you guys are doing, and yeah, just decided to
Perfect.
join you guys as well.
Thank
So
you so much.
thanks. Oh, and my did I mention my name? My name is Lily.
Perfect. Thank you. Tom, some people know Tom, but a quick intro.
Good to see everybody again. So, yeah, I started with Artur and Iuliia on April 1st, 2022. I saw Artur on Fox News, and they asked him what he needed, and the last thing he asked for was an accountant. So I sent him an email. I'm an accountant by training. So I've been working with Iuliia, Artur, Elena, Kate, and a bunch of you guys. So I'm a businessman. I don't know what AI means. I have no idea what it is. But I do know something about UkraineNow. It's a great organization. And the way I look at it at UkraineNow and what Artur has been doing and Iuliia has been doing is a company. So you have a company here. And that's the way you should think of it. Whether you realize it or not, you've created a company. And to Elena's point, if I understood it correctly, I think the best way to proceed, not knowing technology, but I do know business, is pick a project and focus on one project, and you'd be surprised what happens from there. But, we got to win this thing. It's not near over. It's got at least 3 years to go. And we all know what's going on. We're in a stalemate. So maybe we can come up with some good ideas how to end this war faster than it looks like it's going to happen. But anyway, I'm happy to be back involved.
Thanks, Tom. And we'll wrap up with Iuliia and Alina. Some of you, well, most of you who...
And I forgot to mention Brenda. Hello, Brenda. Brenda, of course, she's the spiritual leader.
Yeah, Iuliia, but for those who don't know you, quick intro.
Yeah. Hi guys. I'm Iuliia. I'm Ukrainian. I'm currently living in San Francisco. Once again, welcome to the neighborhood, Artur. My recent career before I turned into 24/7 volunteer is technical project management, but my first career is in journalism, and apparently this is something where, well, once you step in there, you cannot get out. I worked as an editor for, well, in total, like about 10 years, and I'm still doing it here and there. Somehow it finds me. I worked with Artur, with Tom, with Brenda, with Alina, and a bunch of, with Brock, and a bunch of other great people in UkraineNow. And it's great to be back to the setting, to see you all guys, to hear you. And I'm very excited to see it like turning a different spin, a new spin. And recently what I've been doing, I'm calling it dumpster diving, but I'm browsing a lot of media, a lot of writing, and both like about what's happening domestically in Ukraine and how it's been showcased, how it's been communicated, and same like how the same topics, the same narratives get highlighted in the West, in the Western media. And where I'm running with all this is that we are not winning. Ukraine is not winning this war on quite a few matters, and the information and communication is something that we are in like really terrible place, to be honest. There are a couple of projects here and there which at least try to do something with misinformation and with more subtle forms of it, with manipulation, right? With kind of lower the term, but still going to use it with gaslighting, right? With victim blaming. My experience with AI is only like as a user and as a terrible user who's never satisfied with the result. So I've been using it for UX testing and UX testing planning. I've been using it for, believe it or not, creative translation and proofreading the creative translation from Ukrainian to English, with quite good results, I must admit. Hated it, but hey, this didn't work. And I wish we could have it like as good as it gets and as fast as it gets in English. I wish we could have it in Ukrainian, because right now, like in this country, in the States, we are in the election year. It's already a crap show. It's gonna get worse, and it affects Ukraine directly. It affects the situation in Ukraine and situation in Europe directly. And so far, this effect is, well, not really, not what we all want to see. And yeah, I'm curious to see like what we can do there, because yeah, it seems so huge and so insurmountable and so above our control, but so the things were in 2022. And hey, this little crew evacuated like what, 5,000 people? I lost count of how many goods we delivered and distributed directly. We raised some good money without knowing how to do it, actually, without having any experience. And we were able to run it on our own, just on our knowledge, on our expertise, on our ability to stay humans and to listen to each other and to help each other and to step in. Like having people on board like Tom, Brenda, Alina, like, guys, you're cute. You're awesome professionals, and you decided to put your time in it, and look what happened. So yeah, I'm very excited to see it all coming back. Yeah, keeping the tabs open on Lily and your project with TMS. Quick fact checking: TMS was originally used for treatment-resistant depression. It is still being used, and there are some good results for PTSD treatment. With TBI, I know that there was a trial. Cannot say that I'm very familiar with the results, but even with PTSD and with treatment-resistant depression, this application for veterans rehab is very promising. And yeah, that's another part of this war when we're not winning, is reintegrating, rehabilitating our veterans. Can we put AI somewhere there? I'm sure we could. I mean, it's everywhere. Look at it, guys. But yeah, always can use some people, some ideas. Because, yeah, we have the great case study. We have a great showcase. This organization, these people on this call. We thought it's so big, it's so much bigger than us. Oh my God, what we can do? We do not know how to deal with it, and yet we did. So, more power to us, I guess.
Beautiful words. Thank you, Iuliia, for highlighting the amazingness of the experience that we've been able to achieve. And yeah, like just to add to that, I truly think that we've done impossible things in 2022. Now we're in 2024 and things look even more impossible from other perspectives. But hey, you know, we're here, we're showing up, and let's make some useful things happen.
Yeah.
Alina, you're gonna wrap up this round of introductions. Just FYI, guys, Alina has been helping to organize this meeting and kind of lead this whole idea. Obviously, you know, I'm here to talk, but Alina is the brains of the actual creativity behind this one. So hopefully, you know, we all can actually expand that resource. So hopefully this is the first meeting that kicks off the momentum. But Alina, the last intro.
Thank you, Artur. I'm really happy to see you all here again. So many faces I've seen before that are not really faces, but brilliant people that helped us do so many great things for Ukraine. So as for me, I've been with Ukraine now for over 2 years. Professionally, I'm a digital marketing manager. And for the last 2 years, I worked for a Ukrainian company that developed generative AI solutions for different companies. And it was a really interesting time because it was the time when war started and when the infamous ChatGPT spiked up. So we had this whole shift of the whole idea of the company. And I've seen so many great solutions that were built like in mere weeks for companies, like including this huge technological boom that happened. So I do really love this idea of tech for good. And I think we're capable of building something truly life-changing for Ukrainians. And I really love the point that Iuliia made, since, you know, I'm based in Ukraine, and obviously there are so many great initiatives that come from Ukrainians towards the damage that was caused by war. But obviously they are more into the rescue part of war, you know, towards the military, towards the front lines. And there are so many things that come with less priority, but they are actually very important. Like Iuliia mentioned, the media, we have another front there. And Russian propaganda is much stronger than Ukrainian one. So there's a lot of things that we could do. And I see a great potential here for us, like on the level of collaboration between Ukrainians and other countries, because we can build something that will last, that will help us stay strong on those fields where we cannot like put our main force there right now. Because obviously, like apart from the media, there's also cultural heritage. You know, Russians have done a tremendous damage to Ukraine, and there are so many things that need to be done now to preserve everything that Ukraine used to have. But by the time the war will be over, it might be too late to preserve that, to win the war on other fronts. So yeah, like to wrap up, I really hope to help with ideas, with the skills that I have in marketing. And again, thank you, Artur, for bringing us all together. It's it's you who like brought us all together in the very beginning, and I do hope that we will help Ukraine even now and tomorrow.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, that's my useful feature. I'll keep doing that. So to kick off the next section of the call, and I know that we've only got 25 minutes, so I'll be very brief and then open up the floor for the actual kind of like brainstorming and ideas. From what I see, and I've thought about it and also thought about it, was ChatGPT, for full disclosure, which is, you know, such a useful tool for brainstorming and these kinds of, you know, uncertain situations. And it does work, you know, to some extent in Ukrainian, but even those kinds of brainstorming situations are quite limited in Ukrainian. And I've experienced the downsides where it kind of speaks Ukrainian, but not really, because it's very shallow Ukrainian, or it uses the words wrong, or it doesn't really dig deep into things. Like, I'll give you a funny example from the recent experience. I've asked ChatGPT what's the closest or similar thing to Code of Hammurabi, which is like the first legal code in, Babylon, in ancient Babylon. What's the closest similar thing in Ukraine? And it told me, hey, it's Constitution of Ukraine, independence, 1991. And I'm like, seriously? Like, is that the level of depth? And I said, how about the Constitution of Philip Orlik, which happened like, 300-400 years ago? And it said, oh yeah, actually, you're right. So it's almost like you have to know these things in order to dig them out of the depth of the model. And then I said, but how about, Kiev Rus time? Wasn't there something in there? And it was like, oh, you're right. There was Ruska Pravda, which is basically kind of like the first, legal code for the region. So why I'm, renting on that? The brainstorming capabilities, the capabilities to tap into that kind of creativity enabled by AI is one of the, I think, key features that is currently lacking from this whole AI space. And it touches so many different verticals. On the economy, we've got real challenges of infrastructure damage, right? We're seeing the key infrastructure being destroyed, from hospitals to energy stations, all of these pieces that render it kind of like impossible to innovate from the get-go. Then you have inflation and currency instability because of the war, which affects the purchasing power, where, some Ukrainian company may want to use AI in their processes, but it renders it impossible because of the cost. So you need to have Ukrainian sovereign type of solutions, native solutions that are much cheaper and more affordable for the Ukrainian market. And in terms of funding these solutions, the investment climate is really, really bad. Startups are not able to raise any capital. Even the defense startups that, you would imagine being very lucrative and potential investment, simply because the investment climate in Ukraine is not great right now. The other aspect is displacement of the workforce. So many people left Ukraine, so many people, changed locations in Ukraine. The whole market of the workforce is, very, very distressed, which renders it much harder to find people for businesses, for even not business, even nonprofit type of situations. And the other part is the supply chain. The inability to fly things into Ukraine affects so many different aspects of economy. So all of these things, there is no like quick AI solution, press a button and solve it. But on each of those, there's potential of using AI to improve efficiency, to create, manpower in situations where you don't have men, to be able to augment the workforce with some of the AI tools, and also to bring in innovation that will get the investors to invest despite all the risks. Because I've been fortunate to be asked to help with bringing like AI, top people of AI from Silicon Valley to Ukraine to speak at IT Arena, which is one of the biggest conferences. And you would imagine that no one would want to come, right? Because it's actually a hard journey, because you can't really fly into Ukraine, but then all the risks and, missile strikes and everything. But hey, people are going. And why? Because they see the potential. So the more we can do to highlight that potential, besides, defense tech, creating those models that people will be interested in funding, that's an opportunity. That's kind of like the highlight, the model that Alina talked about. And besides the investments and startups and everything else, there is an aspect of media. There is an aspect of how do we communicate things that are happening in Ukraine more efficiently. actually, not having enough people to do that kind of work. How do we augment our processes to be more self-sustainable? How do we fund those things? How do we create new business models out of the uncertainty and scarcity? Because we all know that opportunities exist in those moments of crisis. And it's the question of building the infrastructure to give people tools to create those opportunities out of the most unfortunate situations. So that's kind of like end of my rant, but hopefully that resonated with you on the call and people listening to this recording. And I'll open up the floor to the brainstorm.
May I go? Can I speak?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Artur. That was just fantastic and inspiring. Just sort of putting together different things that I'm hearing here. It strikes me that using media, of course, is a way to draw attention, but what are you doing to draw the attention? And the word innovation comes to mind, and that if we could innovate in a way that, like what I think Lily said, that we, or maybe it was Iuliia, that what we do here is a model for other countries. It seems to me that mental health is a huge issue. And I think, what was it, David, who said that you're Jewish, and or Chris, and that you have family what originated in Ukraine. I do as well, and I found myself 100 years later working to try and do what I could to help Ukraine through this unbelievable crisis. And I found it really healing. It was just such a natural thing. I didn't think about it. It wasn't until I was in the meetings that I started to realize how healing that is. Now I see, as a Jew, another massive crisis happening which has been happening for a very long time, since 1948 in Israel-Palestine. And I'm quite involved in that as well. And I think if here in Ukraine you became innovators for mental health through a war, I see what's going on in Israel, Palestine, and you can say the same in Ukraine. You can sort of chart the trauma and how the trauma continues to propagate and just grow and grow and grow, and it just never gets solved, because it just keeps growing and keeps getting passed on. So my big question is also, how do we heal? And I think using AI, now I will say that I am not a technologist, and I have some issue. I'm an artist, and I have some real issues with AI, but I also see its massive potential. And I think that if you look at the mental health, so Lily, you're starting with veterans, and we're talking now young veterans, right? And you want to work with them and help them. If you use AI, and there are some amazing things that are being done to help people, not just veterans or even soldiers, but you use AI to help the average person who is going through this just unbelievable trauma that will last for decades, generations, if not centuries, if it's not addressed. So I think using AI to help people with the mental health crisis is a really, it would be preferable if it was like we had, 2 million therapists to deploy, or other people in the healing modalities to deploy, but AI can do it faster and much cheaper. So that would be my, thank you. That was a bit of a long rant, but I feel like it really ties into media, because if you're working on people's psychological healing from trauma, and you can use this as a model for war-torn countries all over the world, I think that would be really interesting. And I actually know someone through Daniel, through Thomaso, Artur. His name is Jonathan Haber. He's doing AI coaches and moving into AI therapy. And he's wanted to work with me around story time, using story time, AI and story time. And it's been months that I've been thinking about that. So now I see a beautiful application of AI and tying into what could really call attention to it.
Yeah, thank you, Brenda. Iuliia, you're next, but I want to quickly reflect on this because I do agree that this whole kind of like support vehicle of AI is definitely an aspect of creating infrastructure to heal people and actually to support them. There's so many people that are distressed right now in Ukraine and outside of Ukraine because of the war. And surprisingly, platforms, actually the general platforms, they don't want to go into other languages because it actually costs like almost 4 times more to speak in other languages when you use GPT-4 and other things on the back end. And it's much slower. So it's almost like from the get-go, you get disadvantaged by trying to get into those markets. So I do agree that there's potential there. You there?
There is something interesting just happened, and I think that it only happens in the settings like this when you bring people from different backgrounds and experience and let them talk. And all of us, we touched here and there on different aspects. And Artur, when you said that thing about the manpower, like how you create manpower when there is no manpower without man, let me bring it a little bit to the domain of mental health in Ukraine. And I've been recently involved with the organization who does like the support for the veterans in the field. And one thing that we've been brainstorming about is, okay, in long term, in let's say 5 years from now, how do we help those people? Because one of the issues that we are dealing in Ukraine is, first of all, is the cultural, social culture issue of the attitude towards mental health. We come from the Soviet times, and in Soviet Union, psychiatry was only punitive, and the psychology was a pseudoscience. We do not have it. We do not have mental health professionals in Ukraine. We do not have enough. How many of those are fighting in the trenches? I don't know. Quite a few. I know 2, which is like quite a lot, because psychologists, psychiatrists were not my social circle in Ukraine, and yet somehow I know 2. So both in the front lines. That's one of the things. The other one is that, well, it results from the first one. We do not have schools. We do not have trainings. So we can bring the knowledge from the West, but it will be in a different language. And there is no infrastructure for that. There is no background. There is like, well, you are bringing an expensive device to the place without electricity. That's my analogy. Yeah, it's cool while the battery lasts. The battery dies, what are you going to do with it? How does AI come to that? Well, something I do not really share that often, but a little bit of a, well, very personal thing for the sake of this little group. I do not know, Artur, if you want to leave it in the recording or not, feel free if you want to. My personal story, I am dealing with treatment-resistant depression for about 8 years. I tried pretty much every medication that was currently available, legal and illegal. Not much help there. The only thing I didn't try is TMS, and I didn't try it just because of how like expensive and time-consuming it is. And yet I somehow keep my head above the water, and of course I talk to the robots about it. I did had my points of crisis, and since I am pretty much isolated in the context of volunteering, of war, of, well, having my family living pretty much in the war zone, having my friends fighting, sometimes it's hard. Some days are harder than the others. And I am Ukrainian. I do not call the helpline. I'm not doing it. I go to a bar and talk to somebody. Well, I do not drink anymore, so no. don't really go to a bar. So I gave it a try. I just used it for like sort of a brain dump, and yeah, I managed to have very decent conversations. I had therapists who've been so much worse than that, so that's good. That's good. For free, it's really good. And it's a growing space indeed. On the market of chat GPTs, there are quite a few decent ones in the domain of mental health. Again, all in English. And there we have Ukraine with pretty much no mental health professionals, no school for PTSD, for trauma, and especially no background in healing those who, well, they weren't fighting, but they lost their homes, they lost their livelihoods, they lost their loved ones, they've been pushed out and away from everything they loved. How do we help them? How do they survive? And yes, it's gonna pass for a couple of generations, but how do we at least curb it so it won't span decades or centuries? How do we make it better? Well, thinking caps are on, I guess. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Yulia, and thank you for sharing your personal story. Of course, we'll keep it in recording if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because I do believe this is, this is the reality. This is what every individual is facing, their own, challenges. And we as Ukrainians, I mean, I've also struggled with depression for many reasons that are connected or indirectly connected to the war. So yeah, like this is a real thing, and we should have conversations about it. And there's even more people out there. David messaged me because he didn't raise the hand, but I know that Tom and Lila, you have the hands, but let's have David come in. You're on mute, David. Still on mute.
Thank you very much. I'm using the web client. It doesn't seem to have the feature to raise the hand, but I put in the chat to everybody a list of opportunities for artificial intelligence during warfare. I got this from a good AI website called perplexity.ai, and I put the link to that in there also. What Perplexity does is if you ask it a question, it will search for an answer across 5 website sources, and then it will post the answer along with the actual source material. So you can check to make sure it's not fake news, for example, that's giving you part of your result. So there are, I think, 10 areas that I've identified, and some people have mentioned the word innovation. Innovation is nothing more than doing something faster or with better quality or at less cost. And the key thing that I need to understand in terms of what's happening in Ukraine with regard to the war is an answer to these questions, which I'm about to put in the group chat. A lot of people might ask the question, what is it that you need? Well, the problem with that question is that people don't know what they need, because if they did, then they've already identified what the problem is, and they've identified the solution. Example of this is when Henry Ford, the inventor of the low-cost automobile, went out into his Dearborn township near where I grew up in Detroit. He asked people if they wanted a car, and the response was, no, I don't want a car, I want a faster horse. So we need to start with understanding what it is that they want to do, how they want to do it, and so forth. And Iuliia, who's a journalist, will recognize these questions because these are the fundamental questions that you try to answer in any news article that you write. So if we could launch some sort of effort to ask across Ukraine from as many Ukrainians as possible, especially in the military forces and in intelligence, these questions, and if we can compile some answers, then we can focus resources in the United States and around the world to help address those things.
Thank you, David. I agree with you. Those are very good questions. Tom? And just a quick highlight, we do have 5 minutes late. We may run over, 5 minutes just to give everyone space to talk, but I would love to kind of like start wrapping up the call, but also encourage you to think about the next call that we're gonna have.
Yeah, so basically, I just want to let everybody know I've been working with Julia for 2 years, and she's a terrific leader and project manager. So, and she's basically was my boss, everybody's boss, because she held it together. So, just want people to know that who don't already know it. Just in regards to, just put my business hat back on. Take an inventory of everything that we've done well over the past 2 years, and I think we need to do what's called a relaunch. I don't know if you've ever heard that expression. It's common in business in the States. So not that we've gone dormant, but I think we should take some time to think about how we're going to relaunch the company. And I think of UkraineNow as a company. I know, we want to keep our flexibility, but we have to think about a relaunch. You have to think about regular meetings, updates, all those boring things that you want to run from, but you actually need when you grow. So, I having worked with Julia and Kate and Brenda and Artur, you have the skill sets to run a company as it should be. And finally, just let me say, Russia is not going away. They're just not going to go away until the last Russian comes over that border. It's not in their DNA to go away. They don't think as we think. So this is a long haul project, but I think what UkraineNow has done over the past 2 years, I'm speaking as a businessman again, is it's already has the infrastructure and incredible accomplishments with very few resources. So I think the next thing to do is people have to decide what kind of commitment they're going to make to this and start moving it forward, because it's needed now more than it was 2 years ago. And that's all I have on that. So
Thank you. Yeah, just to answer your comment, Brenda, it's actually a very deep question, because improving the language generation, actually, not just translation, because it's more than translation. It's actually, the structure of the language, what it knows about Ukraine, the history, the cultural, social norms and values, all those things that are encoded as language, we were transferring these things through language. And unfortunately, it's not a part of the business model, so to say, in Silicon Valley right now. So that's kind of like the why this is the current state. And hopefully, as UkraineNow, as Ukrainian community overseas in Silicon Valley, we can change that status quo. So I truly believe that we can, de facto create Ukrainian LLM, the native solution that will be cheap and actually usable by all the businesses, entrepreneurs, everyone in Ukraine. And if we can set the precedent for other countries to do the same, I think that's a worthy mission to pursue. We have still a couple of minutes. If anyone else wants to wrap up the brainstorming. Chris, you're a creative guy. Give us some creative ending notes.
Yeah, well, the challenge, I love being creative inside of the constraints, right? So understanding specifically a mission or the pillars of this organization's constraints and its kind of scope could be helpful, right? Like mental health is much different than artificial intelligence used in warfare, for example. So it's such a broad applicability that inside of the understanding what are the constraints or the means and the resources available to this group or this organization would be helpful for me to know how to brainstorm, right?
Very good point. And I do want to emphasize, as UkraineNow, as 501c3 in the States and California, we're not going into the military use cases. That doesn't mean that we can create infrastructure that other people can utilize to create, support for veterans and all kinds of other creative uses of AI. But we're focusing on that, infrastructure piece to enable the utilization of AI. Yuda, you wanted to say something?
Just a quick response to Chris is that, be it like the warfare or mental health, yes, it's very different applications, but we are looking at the same core problem, the same background problem. It doesn't speak our language, Ukrainian, right? And there is no infrastructure to make it speak this language. So speaking about constraints, that's a huge one. And I do understand like creativity within constraints. It's a great concept. So that's a place for us to start, I guess.
I agree. Maybe that's the kind of the setting for the next call, to actually come up with the constraints that we're gonna problem solve within. And I think we'll do the Google Doc, share it with all the participants and those who couldn't make it. I'll share the recording of the call, and we'll start from there. Probably we're gonna keep this same time for the next call. I would say maybe bi-weekly schedule will be best fit, so that people have enough time to actually think through these things, like kind of like an extra weekend for food for thought. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining in. I think this has been great, and I'm already energized by the what's that English word, reinvigorance or whatever, I don't even know, but
Reinvigoration.
yep. Yeah. Thank you, Brenda. But yeah, super excited to see you all here and new faces, and let's do it.
Yeah, thanks, Artur.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Artur.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Good to see everybody. Good to see you all.
Look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much.